Good morning. Okay, so today we're going to start working in a new reading and writing book. So each day I will be sending you the pages you need out of this book in PDF files. You should have gotten today's pages already. So this book is just more practice with reading and writing. And the real focus is, the more you read, the more you're going to be able to understand and how to write better. Um, so in this first unit, we're going to be focusing on vocabulary. And like I kind of mentioned, one of the best ways to improve your vocabulary, help you understand reading and writing better, is to read more. And we also want to learn vocabulary not just by looking up words, but by looking at vocabulary in context. So, looking at the words around the vocabulary to help us understand what words mean. We call these context clues. So, for the next couple of lessons, we're going to be talking about different context clues that can help us understand vocabulary. So figure out the meaning of unfamiliar words by using the words, the information around it to understand. So if you can open up both pages at once, the PDF and the video, follow along with me. If not, just follow along best you can. So on this first page, we have a little comic here. So it asks us about the word savor. So if we look at the comic, one kid says, "Eat it slowly so you can savor the taste. If you eat too fast, you won't fully appreciate the flavor." Um, so we can use the context of the cartoon to understand the meaning of the word savor. He says you won't fully appreciate the flavor if you don't savor it. So we can understand by that savor most likely means to enjoy. Um, Older brother is advising his younger brother to take enough time to appreciate. So that's what we mean by context, looking at what's around the information to understand what it means. So you may not know all the words you see in English, but if you saw words in sentences, you can come up with a general idea of their meaning. So on the understanding vocabulary and context, we have a few examples. So the first one, all animals share the same vital needs, such as food, water, and shelter. So if we look at that sentence, we might not know what vital means, but we're given some clues. So what are vital needs? Food is vital, water is vital, shelter is vital. Given that, we can understand that vital probably means that something is necessary. It's very important to us. Okay, number two, in the United States, shaking hands is the appropriate way to greet someone. In China, bowing is the right way. So if we want to understand appropriate, we want to look at what's around it. So in the US, shaking hands is appropriate. In China, bowing is the right way. So we can guess that appropriate probably means something similar to the right way. So in this case, it means appropriate is proper. It's the proper way of doing something. Okay. Number three, winners in life take an active role in making things happen instead of being passive and waiting for good luck. So if we want to figure out passive, again, we look at what's around it. So winners take an active role instead of being passive. So passive in this case means inactive. We have active on one side. Instead, we're talking about inactive. Okay. So there are a few different types of context clues that we can use. And these context clues help us for a few reasons. So number one, it saves you time when you're reading. If you can look at what's around a sentence and understand what the word means, you won't have to go to the dictionary or Google to look it up. And then it'll also improve your working vocabulary. So words that you recognize as you read and will eventually be able to use in your own writing and speaking. So just by reading a lot more, you'll start to work more things into your own vocabulary. And then it also gives you a better sense of how a word is actually used. So if you're just looking at definitions, you know what the word means, but the more you read, the more you see it in writing, you see how English speakers actually use the word. So again, we're going to talk about 4 types of context clues in this lesson. So examples, synonyms, antonyms, and then the general sense of a sentence or passage. Today, we're just going to look at examples and synonyms. We'll move on to the others later. So with examples, so sometimes you come across an unfamiliar word and it's followed by examples about the word. So on the pages I sent you, we have another little comic here. It's a man and woman. So when my folks ask when I'm going to get a job, I always give some vague answer, such as sooner or later. So if we want to understand what the word vague means, here we're given an example. A vague answer. What is his vague answer? He says sooner or later. So if we were guessing what vague means, probably unclear. Sooner or later is not specific. So as an example of a vague answer, it shows that something is unclear. So we have a few examples on page 18 here. So each italicized word is followed by examples. Examples, we often have signal words like for example, for instance, including, such as. So that'll help us figure out when we're given an example. So our practice here. In our house, clothes hangers have various odd functions. For instance, we use them to scratch backs and hold up plants in the garden. So if we want to figure out what function means, we look at the example. So what functions do they use? They scratch backs, hold up plants in the garden. So these are ways we're using the hangers. So function means just a use or uses. Number 2, our baseball team's pitcher has a few eccentric habits, such as throwing exactly 13 pitches when warming up and never wearing socks. So we know that the habits are eccentric, so we look at what the habits are. Throwing exactly 13 pitches, never wearing socks. So these are things that are strange. So the examples tell us what the word means. And then number 3, throughout history, humans have built a wide variety of dwellings, including simple mud huts, stone castles, and marble mansions. So we want to understand what dwellings means, so we give examples of what dwellings are. Huts, castles, mansions. So through those examples, we can understand that a dwelling means a home. All right. And then we've got some exercises for you. And then our next form of context clues is the synonym. So a synonym is one or more words that mean the same or almost the same as the unknown word. So looking at our next cartoon here, I try to refrain from overeating, but I can't stop myself. So for refrain, he tries to refrain, but he can't stop himself. So stop himself, or stop is the synonym for refrain. He can't stop himself, so he can't refrain. So some more examples farther down this page. So our first sentence, the cat soon found it useless to smack her paws against the front of the fish tank. Her effort to catch a fish was futile. So we have our word futile matched up with the word useless. So futile and useless mean similar things. Sentence 2, my best friend squandered all his money. His drinking and gambling wasted his earnings. So we can see that squandered means something very similar to wasted because they're used in the same way. Then number 3, because my boss runs the toy store like a tyrant, all of the employees call her the little dictator. Again, so we have the words tyrant and dictator used in very similar ways to show that they have very similar meanings. All right, so those are a couple of context clues. So I've got some practice for you to do. Then next time we'll move on into antonyms, general sense of the sentence in a passage. So hope that gets you started, and thanks.